Greetings from Bristol, Tennessee, where this edition of The Story Behind the Song is originating this week. Here's a song that I only know was written between 1994 and 1996 because of its placement on our Paint the Town Red project that was released in 1998. I had been thinking about what I actually knew about this Jesus who taught me where it all started and why I would stake my reputation, my vocation, and my very life, and that of my family, on my belief in this one I'd never seen. My mama passed away on September 24th, 2020. Tomorrow, from the time I'm recording this, will be 1 month. When I was a kid, Mama always made sure that we were in church. We'd all have our weekly baths on Saturday evening in preparation to head to the church house on Sunday morning. I remember making sure that my shoes were polished up and I had a good shine on them, and that I knew exactly where my dress clothes were so that I could slip into them quickly the next morning. Sunday morning would roll around, and I can still recall the sound of that old pressure cooker as Mama would be preparing the roast that would feed all of us as soon as we got home after the Sunday morning service. I always remember, too, a lot of those years, Catherine Kuhlman would be playing loudly on the TV, "I believe in miracles." She was a trip. I never remember a time that my life wasn't planned around something religious, the church, or around this gospel of Christ. You know, we always had a piano in our house, and as I look back, the only reason that they had that old upright had to be so us kids could be exposed to it in case we had a talent for it or an interest to play it, because Mom or Dad, neither one of them played. Mom always took us to choir practice with her. She wasn't known as a great singer, and in a lot of ways she reminded me of Lucille Ball on I Love Lucy, although she could carry a tune and was a much better singer than we heard Lucy being. Otis Caldwell was pastor of Grace Baptist Temple there at St. Albans, West Virginia, and his son Paul was the music director. And that guy could play the hound out of a piano, and he was a wonderful music director as well. Mom would take us to choir practice on Sunday evenings, and they'd let little Robbie here sit with the organist on the bench of that Hammond Model A100 organ. And I'd watch Paul teach the choir how to breathe, when to breathe, and how to clip those vowels off with consonants, because, you know, you don't sing consonants, you only sing vowels. I mean, try to sing an S or a T. It doesn't work that way. I remember Paul saying to Mom, too, said, "Wilda, you've got to teach those kids to breathe properly through their diaphragm. Have them lay on their backs on the floor, get an encyclopedia and put it on their stomachs. Have them breathe in and out. And if that encyclopedia doesn't go up and down as they breathe, they're only pulling air into their lungs and not sucking it down into the bellows of their diaphragm." We practiced and practiced breathing right. Or, well, at least I know I did. And then Paul and his wife, I think her name was Gail, would often come to our house after the church house meetings on Sunday evening. He'd play that old upright piano, and we'd sing through the old hymn books and gospel song books, page after page, Stamps Baxter music, all of it. We'd have cake and ice cream, and it was always fun. But we'd be singing about the gospel of Christ. I started playing the piano when I was 4 years old. We kids started singing together at the church house when my twin brother Richie, Rick, and I were 5. And you know, from those days forward, we always sang gospel music. Everything was built around church and the gospel of Christ. Everyone around me had a testimony of how the gospel had changed their lives. During those days, too, we'd jump off the school bus with our little friends. We'd run into the house and we'd listen to our cousin, Mary Elizabeth, who would be there one day a week to hold a good news club meeting. That was a part of the Child Evangelism Fellowship that she was involved in. Mary Elizabeth became a Christian in 1950 because my mom invited her, dragged her, to a tent meeting that was held by Dr. Otis Caldwell and Ralph Matthews, who would become the pastor and co-pastor of what was to become the Grace Baptist Temple. Since the days of sitting on the organ bench there at the temple, every year I'd ask Mom and Dad to get me an organ for Christmas. I was around 10 years old, and Dad actually bought us a Hammond T200 spinet organ from Grinnell Brothers, Detroit, Michigan, where we were living at that time. I worked at learning to play all of the songs and hymns and gospel tunes that I had played on the piano because that's the music I knew and that's the music I loved. Then in 1969, we moved back to West Virginia from Michigan. I was 12 years old and I began playing dinner music at the Rose City Cafeteria there at South Charleston, West Virginia. We'd been eating there that day, and Dad saw the Hammond A100 sitting at the very front of the cafeteria auditorium there, and it was just like the one that I had sat on the bench with the organist at Grace Baptist Temple so many years prior. Well, Dad asked the waitress if I could play the organ, and she said, honestly, "I don't know, can he?" Well, she got permission, and even though I was scared to death and I didn't want to, I got up there and I played a couple of songs. Before long, I saw Blanche Debo, the manager, come out from behind the steam table and walk towards me. Lumbering walk. It seemed like it took her forever to get back to me because I was thinking, I didn't even want to play this thing, and now she's going to kick me out of here. She leaned over and she said, "Son, would you like to play through the dinner hour?" And I said, "Well, ma'am, all I know are gospel songs and hymns." And she said, "Play them," because our lives were built around the gospel of Christ. Our gospel music group was well known in the tri-state area too. There was a long-running daily live morning country music television show, WCHS TV Channel 8 Charleston, called the Sleepy Jeffer Show. Well, during our teen years, our group would often provide gospel music on that live program on Thursdays between 7 and 8 a.m. We were on just after Romper Room with Miss Marilyn, which was live as well. Our lives were built around the gospel of Christ. I began working as a DJ on WVAF, Charleston's 100,000-watt FM Christian station, at 16 years old, the year just prior to my brother Rick and I moving to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. At 17, we traveled there and we made our home at Winston, and for the next 35 years, the gospel of Christ would be my love, my passion, and my vocation. All the while talking, writing, speaking, and singing about a God that I hadn't seen, a God that no one has ever seen, a God from whom I was separated and alienated from the time I was born, but who sent the one I would come to know as being my elder brother, my kinsman redeemer, the one who came to redeem me back to the Father 1956 years before I ever showed up, and whose gospel I've proclaimed in song most of these years, having never seen. I've only seen him in the pages of his letters. I've only peered at him through the windows of my mind. I've only watched him in his word. Men say it's just a lie that he has risen from the grave. Oh, but that'll be the day. Here's the song that my co-writing buddy, the late Shannon Jonas, and I wrote because of the brief history I've just recounted. This footage comes from two different concerts, the first at the First United Methodist Church in Yuba City, California in June of the year 2000. And the encore I spliced in that came from Matt, me, Patty, and Audra singing the Gospel Music Television Network, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, 3 years earlier. And the song is called That'll Be the Day.
Just